In our previous video, we learned we can quickly view information by using conditional formatting and querying Excel by creating if-then statements. With those two options, we were able to determine which prospective clients not to call and quickly determine inactive from active clients. We'll continue on using functions which are built into Excel to help analyze our data. This worksheet represents sales orders of TVs, washing machines, refrigerators, and microwaves. The orders are delivered by trucks and airplane, and they're delivered to several different cities with different drivers. We'll now look at 4 functions which help us to answer questions that we've been asked to give a report on. Those functions are Countif, Sumif, Countifs, and Sumifs. In the first section of the report, we are asked to report the number of orders sent to each of the destinations. We'll begin by selecting cell N9, beginning with our equal sign as with any function or formula, and the function that we're going to be completing here is the Countif function. We're going to count the number of destinations that equal Point Thompson. We type in Countif and begin our calculation with the left parentheses. It wants to know what is the range. The range is G5 through G28. We separate the next part with a comma, and we put in our quotation mark because we're going to be entering text, and enter in Port Thompson. Close the quotation, close the parentheses, and enter. We continue on for each of the destinations with the same function, Countif, and we'll complete the report. After completing the number of orders in each of the destinations, we'll move on to counting the number of microwave orders. So equal Countif, the range being the D5 through D28, and the criteria being microwave. Countif is getting to be pretty easy. We were able to complete truck 3 and Lisa Kelly, but here comes a bigger challenge. How many times are the number of items less than 20? Let's see how we do that. We can begin exactly the same way. Equal Countif and the range. How many are the number of items less than 20? We find our item column, which is our range, but the criteria cannot just be less than 20. Let's see what happens if we do try to do that. We get an error. We need to make sure that we're letting Excel know that they're counting these numbers, not adding these numbers, and we do that by putting quotation marks around the less than 20. And now when we select enter, we get the right answer. The next function we're going to look at is the Sumif function. The Sumif function, instead of using a range and a criteria, it's going to use a range, and a criteria because we're looking for the sum of refrigerator items. Refrigerator, we know, is in the item column, but the number of is in the number of items column. Let's see how this works. We'll select cell N17. We'll begin with Sumif and our left parentheses, and it asks for the range, and it's the criteria range. The criteria is refrigerator, so we'll begin by selecting D5 through D28 range, comma, the criteria is refrigerator, comma, and the sum range, where is it going to find the numbers to add up? It's going to find those in E5 through E28. And now we close our formula and enter. And it finds that there was a total of 105 refrigerator items sold. We'll do that one more time. For washing machines, equals Sumif, left parentheses. What range are we looking for washing machines? Again, D5 through D28, comma, the criteria is washing machine, comma, and where is it going to find the numbers to add up? That would be E5 through E28. Close our formula. We complete the sum the items transported by each truck using the same type of formula, knowing that we're looking for the truck and then adding the number of items. But the sum of items transported by trucks with an S, meaning all the trucks, is a little bit different. Let's take a look. We'll begin the formula exactly the same way, Sumif, and we're looking at Sumif. This range meets this criteria. And here we can use a wildcard. So trucks, TRUCK asterisk. Asterisk is a wildcard, which means anything that begins with truck and ends with anything else. Put our quotations, our comma, and then where are we asking Excel to do the addition, and close our formula. And we see that we have a total of 511. And now that we're comfortable with the Countif and the Sumif statements, let's add another level. We'll move on to the Countifs function. In this case, we're going to look for the number of microwave orders that were sent to Point Thompson. We'll begin with our equal, and this time instead of just Countif, we want to make sure that we're adding the S, and our first criteria range is to look for a microwave order. So D5 through D28 and microwave, comma, and our second criteria is Point Thompson, so we're going to look in G5 through G28, put Point Thompson in in quotation marks, and close our formula. We'll continue on and do exactly the same for Yellowknife, Dome Lake, Lockhart Lake, and Colmac Mine. You'll do the same for the number of trips top. And now we're comfortable with Countif and Countifs. Let's add another criteria to our functions. In this case, we're going to count ifs, in other words, two pieces of criteria, one being the number of microwaves in point Thomson. We're looking for two pieces of criteria for cell N26. Equal, and this time we want to make sure that we're putting an S on the end of our Countif to make it Countifs. The first criteria that we're looking for is microwave. The second criteria we're looking for is the destination of point Thomson. After completing the Countifs for each of the destinations and the number of journeys that Todd Dewey took with truck 1, we're ready to move on to the number of orders in each city after 2/3/2021. So in cell N28, we'll begin our formula. Let's look at that date range first. The date range criteria is in cell B5 through B28. And if we remember from our if-then statement, when you use dates, we want to make sure that we put those in quotations as well, because Excel will think that we're trying to divide if we put in 2/3/2021. We want to tell Excel that no, we're using a date. And now we're ready for the next criteria, which is point Thomson. And we have our answer. And now we'll complete across, and then we'll take a look at how we do between two dates. After completing our formulas for each of the destinations and the number of Todd Dewey journeys with truck 1, we're ready to look at the number of orders in each city after 2/3/2021. We're still going to use the Countifs statement, but we need to remember that when using date criteria within a formula, we need to put those dates in between quotation marks. Otherwise, Excel is going to see 2 divided by 3 divided by 2021 instead of the date 2/3/2021. Our second criteria is for the city, and we'll select G5 through G28 and put in the city. This next question could be a little bit more confusing, but really we're going to do it exactly the same way. We'll start with equals Countifs, and we want to count the date in the range of B5 through B28 if it is greater than or equal to 2/3/2021, and we'll use the same range B5 through B28. This time the criteria is less than or equal to 2/6/2021. And our formula, and we have our answer. Next up, we'll look at Sumifs. When we're working with the sum functions, whether it be Sumif or Sumifs, we know that we have to have a column or a range of numbers that Excel can add. And in this case, we want the sum of microwaves. So we know microwaves is the item, but the number of the items are found in column E. So we're going to know right away that we need to add column E. And our other sets of criteria in the ifs are microwaves and Yellowknife. So beginning in cell O32, we'll start our formula, Sumifs, and it wants to know the sum range. That means what column are we adding? We've already said we're adding the number of items. And our first criteria range, we find microwaves in the D column. And our second criteria range, which is the city, is found in G5 through G28. For practice, we're more than welcome to fill out the other cities as well. But let's move on to sum of items transported to Lockhart Lake by truck 1. Again, it's asking for a sum of items. This is what it'll be adding that are transported to Lockhart Lake. Again, the destination by truck 1. And last criteria is looking at the transport. So we'll select Lockhart Lake column equals Sumifs, the sum range, the first criteria range, and the second criteria range. And you can have as many ranges as you're trying to narrow down your questions. And last, we need the sum of items ordered between February 3rd and February 6th. And we'll be doing that the same way we did the Countifs, only this time we're doing Sumifs, and we'll be summing the items. And now this part of the report is complete. Submit it to your assignment.